we want to go ahead and, if we can, start off with Curt Lawson. He's the Deputy Police Chief Public Information Officer for the West Bloomfield Township Police Department. Curt, it is always such a pleasure having you here on the Oakland County MegaCast. Happy Friday to you.
Well, happy Friday to you, Ronnie, and hello, Tyler. And I think Tyler said it yesterday. Boy, 2020 has been a lot of fun, hasn't it?
I just want to erase it from my memory,
It's
right?
Too much fun.
And thank goodness it's Friday, because I'm ready for the weekend.
Hey, Curt, I know you're a father. Schools are heading back to class. I know here in West Bloomfield this week and in other schools in the coming weeks. Not sure how old your kids are, if they're still in high school or college, but how are you handling this outside of the police department and your responsibilities over there, but just as a dad?
Well, so I have two daughters, 17 and 15, and every day is an adventure. And I got to tell you, if you're a person that doesn't like change or you're an anxious person, this 2020 is not for you. Fortunately, I kind of can handle both. And as a parent, that's kind of what you need. You have to be very flexible because there's so many changes and so many uncertainties out there on a daily basis with education and the fact that you have to wear masks and capacity limits at different stores and restaurants. There's just so much going on this year. But you know, my heart goes out to the parents, to the educators, to the administrators, because it's been a heavy lift for everybody.
So we'll go ahead and kind of dive in from a police department standpoint with the kids heading back into the classroom. How's that for your department, and what are you guys doing? I know there's a lot of extra patrols out on the street. I've been seeing you I've been coming into the office. We're just down the street from you.
Right. So every year we increase patrols at all the schools. We have our school liaison officer that goes into each school. So we encourage our officers on a daily basis to stop into the school, obviously wearing their personal protection equipment, to go in and say hi to everyone, let the administrators, the teachers, the students know that we're there. And we're going to remain visible throughout the community, but specifically at our schools.
Curt, one of the hard things this year, as a driver and someone who is a regular citizen, maybe you don't have kids in the school district, you don't understand the changes within West Bloomfield. They have different times this year. So we're used to, hey, there's going to be increased traffic like it, in the morning and the afternoon for pickup, but that's different this year.
Well, the schedule has been fluid, to say the least, and every school district's been a little bit different. But West Bloomfield, they have if you're not in the high school, you're going to school certain days of the week, and the times are all different. So we have just sent out an email to all of our officers to make sure they fully understand the school district schedule. And we also understand that may change depending on infection rates. And as we move through this pandemic, things can change very quickly.
Curt, in terms of managing traffic, as we have multiple times that the kids are arriving to school and being dismissed from school. We spoke to Chief John Fitzgerald in Keigel Harvard yesterday about the work that his department's doing at Roosevelt Elementary and assisting at Abbott Middle School. What kind of similar work's being done in West Bloomfield at our elementary school, our K-8 institutions in West Bloomfield, who are having in-person learning 4 days a week?
So like I said, we're just being visible. Certainly if a school identifies that they're having a traffic problem outside of the school, or they need some assistance getting the parents out as far as vehicular traffic, we'll be more than glad to assist them. We staff pretty heavy on the road with our patrol officers, so we're always there and willing to help.
So Curt, of course we have to touch on what's going on in Wisconsin. I know Governor Whitmer just announced that she is going to be sending members of the Michigan National Guard to Wisconsin to assist with the civil unrest that is going on there. This has to be a hard time to be a police officer, trying to defend your profession when these incidents happen. What is that like? And when you see videos such as these come out, what goes through your mind in those moments?
Well, it's been a tough year to be in law enforcement, and my concern is, as we go from one incident, it seems like, to another incident, is how are we going to survive as a profession? How are we going to recruit the people that we need to recruit and what our nation expects. We really need to recruit more minorities into law enforcement. How do we do that with what we're seeing day to day? One of the problems that I see with the latest incident with Jacob Blake and Kenosha PD is, and you know this is a PIO, it's so important as a law enforcement agency to control that narrative, to be transparent, to let the public know exactly what you know, what the facts are, as you noted at that point. And we went 3 days where I heard nothing from them. And I think they allowed other people to control that narrative. So that, to me, was a problem. And I'm going to reserve judgment as far as that incident itself. Only information I have is from that video. So I don't know anything besides that. But I wish they would have got out in front of that a little bit more. And we've seen that time and time again from Chief Craig in Detroit, and he's gone out and he's released videos. And you know what? We're human beings in law enforcement, and from time to time we are going to make mistakes. And when you make a mistake, you've got to own it. And that's what we've always done here at West Bloomfield. Thankfully, we don't make very many mistakes, but when we do, we own it. We let people know that, hey, we had to make a split-second decision in this circumstance, and in this particular circumstance, we made a mistake, and we're going to learn by it. So that's the way we've been. And I'll say, maybe more on a macro level, that many Black Americans throughout this country say that they see inequality in the way that they're treated by law enforcement. And law enforcement needs to recognize this, and they need to figure out what we need to bridge this gap. We start with communication, we start with listening, we have a good dialogue, and we figure out how we can build this relationship back where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that right now in pro sports, where some of the football players, the Lions, even Matthew Stafford came out and said being able to listen to his teammates helped him understand things more. And I think in law enforcement that is needed. So as Curt had mentioned, I was a public information officer for ATF. And the feds right now are getting such a backlash for coming into Detroit to help with the violent crime. And you want to try to say is like, the feds have been here forever. They just brought in additional resources. What's so hard about this, Curt, is when politics get involved in law enforcement, how do you navigate that? Because I will say, as someone who was a journalist who got into law enforcement, I was surprised at the level of politics involved in keeping our streets and our neighborhoods safe, because I don't think the criminals go through the politics that we go through.
Well, how I navigate it is I'm very careful. I'll tell you that right now. But you know what it is in law enforcement, you just got to do the right thing. And that's one thing Chief Patton, from day one that he became chief here, is he always tells everyone, do the right thing. And that's the way we operate. And we set politics aside. And, our politicians right here in West Bloomfield, they're all Democrats. And I think Democrats have gotten somewhat of a bad rap as far as whether they support or don't support law enforcement. But our township board has been extremely supportive of law enforcement here in West Bloomfield. They have given us the tools that we need to be successful, and we're greatly appreciative of that.
One of the good things about West Bloomfield, it's a very diverse community, which from a policing standpoint can also make it a bit of a difficult and a bit of a challenge. Can you talk a little bit about how your department has reached out to the community to try to bridge those gaps, and also humanizing the badge, and how important is social media and getting that message out?
There's a lot of questions there.
Sorry.
One of the things the chief and I say, and it's kind of a funny thing that we say, is that we're in bed with everyone here in West Bloomfield. We are in the Chaldean community, we're in the Jewish community, we're in the African American community. We belong to every nonprofit group that's out there. We have someone on the board of all the nonprofits. We're at the clergy, all of that. So we reach out and we look at ourselves as partners with our community. We're not some occupying force here in West Bloomfield. We are partners with our community, and we're problem solvers to try to better our community that we all love. And yes, this is one of the most diverse communities in the state of Michigan. And I think that we're doing a lot of things right here, and we really could be the blueprint for law enforcement agencies across the state and how they develop these partnerships with their community and how we engage in community policing. And it's not just Chief Patton and Curt Lawson that are the face of the department, we really encourage our officers to go out and talk to people, to introduce themselves and to kind of humanize that badge. And then the third component of all of that, and you discussed, is the importance of social media. And we really, I think, we do a pretty decent job in marketing our department and marketing our team and how they are committed to this community. And we've been very successful with it.
Hey, Curt, is the West Bloomfield Police Department on TikTok?
We have done some TikTok videos, not necessarily in the last couple of months, but at the beginning of 2020, we did some TikTok videos, and we got that encouragement from my youngest daughter that said, get with it. Because like you said, we really love Facebook, and we've moved into Instagram and Twitter, but TikTok is huge, and it's something that we're definitely going to continue to use in the future.
Curt, you've mentioned, there you go, there's my mic. Curt, you've mentioned that continuing the conversations with communities of marginalized people in West Bloomfield that you are covering in your department has been crucial, and it's been something that your department's been focusing on over the last several months as we've seen these incidents with departments all throughout the country. How are you and Chief Patton and your team continuing those conversations in between these incidents and keeping those conversations going even when they're not necessarily on the forefront nationally?
So we get asked questions all the time from leaders within the African American community. I just had a conversation 2 nights ago with the president of AT&T, the state of Michigan, and he wanted to know my thoughts on police reform and how AT&T could help. And we had a great conversation. So yeah, we're always engaging in these conversations. We're letting them know what we're doing, our views on what needs to be done nationally. We really believe, and I think the chief would agree with this, that it starts with leadership. And we got to make sure that we have the progressive leaders in law enforcement, educated leaders that understand what needs to be done in police reform. The second part of that is we need funding. We need to have funding for law enforcement agencies to provide the proper equipment and the proper training for their people. And I think that, what you see in West Bloomfield, it's very special. We have the money. We have the training. Our officers, I consider our officers some of the best officers in the state of Michigan. But there's smaller departments that they want to be that. They want to have that quality, but they don't have the money for the training. So we need to make sure that the funds are available for the training, for the equipment, and to be able to recruit the very best people. So there's a lot of work to be done in law enforcement. I think we've been working on it nationally, but not to the pace that has satisfied our minority communities. So we need to step up the pace, but that involves funding. We do need funding, not defunding the police.
Curt Lawson, he is the Deputy Police Chief Public Information Officer over at West Bloomfield Township. And as you said, you can't defund the police and not have the training that they need. I think a lot of this comes with training, and it also comes with we need to diversify the ranks, and that is bridging the gaps. But one thing that you mentioned was kind of the difference in the minority groups. And I think one of the hard things with Jacob Blake and what happened in Wisconsin was seeing the difference of, again, and you reserve judgment on everything that happened because coming from law enforcement that what you're seeing in that 20-second video clip is not the entire story. So you need to, have the facts and the figures to be able to make an informed decision. However, in today's day and age where videos are out there in a split second, you had the incident with Jacob Blake, with him being shot by the police officer, but then you had the incident with the 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse and the video of him, being accused of shooting the people and then walking he had the rifle on him, his hands are in the air, and people are screaming he just shot someone, and the police continue to drive by. I know it's different situations and different moments, but that kind of feeds into this narrative that police are racially profiling. How do you explain that to your community? Because I'm sure you're getting the questions that are being asked all over the country.
Sure. I don't know enough about that incident that you just spoke about to really comment comment on it, so I'm not going to comment on it. But I will say that I'll tell you one of the things that we do when we first hire someone here at West Bloomfield. Their first 10 minutes in the door, they're sitting down with me and we're having a conversation. And I'm telling them, as an executive here within the West Bloomfield Police Department, I'm going to provide you the best training, the best equipment possible. I'm going to have your back. We're going to make you a successful police officer. But if we find out that you're racial profiling, that if you're using excessive force, if you're racially biased, that the chief and I are going to do everything possible to remove you from our agency. So that is very clear, very quickly. And that's a message that I put out to the new recruits, and Chief Patton does the exact same thing.
So, Curt, can you talk a little bit about when you're talking about the training and also the discipline? I know there's a big push to come up with a national database of police officers that have been disciplined. People feel that the unions protect a lot of these officers. They're allowed to retire and just move from department to department. What are your thoughts on that?
So there is a national use of force database. It was established in early 2019, and the West Bloomfield Police Department, we jumped on that right away and provided data to them, which was basically zero. And the data that they collect was, if a fatality occurs in connection with the use of force from a police agency, or if there's serious injury in connection with the use of force, or even if a firearm was just discharged at or near an individual. So we believe that data is extremely important within the West Bloomfield Police Department, and we have participated with that use of force data program from day one.
Curt Lawson with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the Deputy Police Chief and Public Information Officer with West Bloomfield Township. Curt, just a few more minutes with you before we let you go. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss today that we haven't talked about, or anything else that you believe is important for our community to know?
Well, absolutely. I want to throw some kudos out to our officers and detectives. We've had some major incidents here in the past several weeks, and I'll just briefly. We had two individuals that allegedly came in from a different jurisdiction, a different city. They came into the township one evening, and they entered two residences that were found to be unlocked, and the homeowners were actually home asleep during the time. They went through the house, they stole some items, they went into the neighborhood, they were entering unlocked vehicles, stole a bunch of items. Fortunately, our detectives were able to catch up with one of them about a day later, and he is safely in custody. So we just want to remind all of our residents, even though this is one of the safest communities in Michigan, that incidents like these can happen here. And we just encourage them to keep their doors locked, especially at night. Keep your cars locked. If you have valuables within your car, keep them out of sight. Help us help you. And then the second incident we had was we had a young lady that alleges that a young man tried to rob her at a local ATM at a bank. And we have that individual in custody as well. So a great job by our detectives and our officers here at West Bloomfield in the last week and a half. We've had a couple of major incidents, but they've safely brought these two individuals into custody.
Crimes of opportunity. Lock your house, lock your cars. My husband is constantly on me to lock the house. I forget. Hey, Curt, before I let you go, I'm on TikTok. What's your name on? What's the department's name?
I'm not personally on it.
No,
I can tell you my.
What's the West Bloomfield Police Department? I'm trying to find you guys. I think I want to see a TikTok video from you.
All right, I will find out. I don't know off the top of my head because, like I said, we haven't been on there in a little while. But I'll get that information to you, and you can let people know.
Get grooving. We want to see the West Bloomfield Police Department on TikTok.
We're going to be on there, I promise.